Perfect. So thank you very much, Mel, for joining and leading this webinar today. I
Thank
will
you.
give the word to you. You can introduce yourself and
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. Today we will talk about communication and effective communication more specifically. I'm Melissa. I worked with communication, program management in the social field and teacher training for many years now. So communication is at the base of all the jobs I've been having in the last 15 years, pretty much by now. So it's such an important thing, especially when you're in intercultural environments and at every kind of age, in every kind of scenario. So I hope you will find this interesting and useful, since it applies not only to our professional life, but also to our personal life, quite some. So can you see the slide all fine? Yeah. Okay, I will take it as a yes. All good. Okay, yes, I saw now the... Okay, thank you. So let's get started then. How do we communicate? So I also want to hear from you a little bit. So feel free like to jump in and speak out or to put it in the chat. How do we communicate? What are the ways that we communicate as humans? Let me know. Let me also see where I can see the chat over here.
How do we communicate? Writing. Writing is the first answer.
Writing, fair enough. I mean, yes, especially younger generations. I guess that's the point. That's the problem sometimes when, especially when it comes to fabbing and so on, that maybe it's a bit too much writing and a bit too less speaking. But indeed, okay, writing, speaking, fair enough. And when we speak, or even when we write, what are the elements that we use in communication?
Letters?
The voice.
The voice, a laugh. Okay.
Yeah, fair enough. So
What do we use? What do we use when we communicate? Moving, very time. Moving.
The movement. What about the movement actually? So what speaks? So for example, if I'm looking at you like this, what is this? It's facial expression showing some emotions, right? So indeed, there's a lot beyond words, be it in the written form or in the spoken form, right? So you talked about the voice. So indeed, when you refer to the voice, we are talking about verbal communication, or even when you write to each other, verbal is the actual words that we choose, okay? And one word can make a huge difference. But to be fair, sometimes we forget how much the non-verbal also says in communication, okay? So such as the body language, the eye contact, the posture, okay? So for example, if you come to me and I'm like this with my hands shut, I am bringing closure to you. So it's like I'm putting distance in this sense, right? While if I smile at you, even if I tell you very bad words and I smile at you, there's something wrong, right? So my verbal part is not going with my non-verbal part, the facial expression that we talked about, but also the tone of voice, the pace, the volume. So if we shout to somebody like that, or if we use a better tone, lowered tone, okay? And of course, we also have some communication styles, which we will talk about in a second. So are we talking in an assertive way, in a passive way, in an aggressive way to somebody, and so on, okay? So for example, what about eye contact? So what does eye contact say about? What is the kind of message that it passes doing eye contact with people?
Oh, you like the person. Okay, very nice. They like the
Like the
person.
person. Fair enough.
Okay.
That it's personal, that you like the person. Indeed, the eye contact mean that I am trying to connect with you beyond the words, right? Which of course, even then, there's eye contact and eye contact, obviously. You know, one thing is staring at a person like this, and one thing is like from time to time looking, smiling with the eyes also, and so on. Okay. So indeed, do not underestimate how much the nonverbal and also the paraverbal talks about you, okay? Even when it comes to paraverbal, we can think about the pace. So if I talk like this, probably at some point you're gonna fall asleep instead of following me, okay? But maybe if I talk, maybe it's a bit too much to take, okay? So always shape your communication based on the person you have in front, based on what you see that the person can follow. And also, of course, I mean, it's not here, but also the gut feeling of communication. What does it mean to use your gut feeling in communication?
Yeah. What does it mean when you use gut feeling? Yes. In communication.
When I don't know they are
Okay, when you don't know the topic, use your gut feeling. Okay, when you know the topic.
Yeah, the gut feeling is like the sixth sense kind that we have, no? So like something that we feel, but maybe the words are not saying, the body is not saying, the tone of voice is not exactly saying, but then we have a sixth sense in our stomach usually, you know? So that also tells us something more, okay? So indeed, like communicating effectively with people actually mean using all these senses and all these elements in order to be able to pass your message across, pretty much. Okay, very nice. Then, what does it mean to listen actively? What does it mean?
So when we talk about active listening, what do we mean? Have you ever heard of the term active listening before today? Okay, very nice. Active listening. What do you think it could
when
be?
you interested.
Perfect. When you show interest. When you show interest. Okay.
Showing interest. So a person is sharing something with me and I show interest. What are the kind of ways I can show this interest?
How can you show that you are interested? I mean, how can you actively listen? How? Yeah.
By listening and asking questions, we have something in the chat, absolutely. So listen, actually process that information and ask some questions. You ask questions when do you ask questions? What is the purpose of asking questions?
When you want to know more.
When you want to know more, absolutely, because maybe you are very interested and you want to deep dive, absolutely. When you're interested in the argument, absolutely. So to show interest. So not just that you want to know more, but just that you want to show, I am listening to you, I hear you, for sure. And one last scenario, what could be?
One last scenario, another way.
Another situation in which you would ask for questions. What could it be?
When do you ask questions? I mean, in class, for example. When do you ask?
Understand.
Perfect. When you didn't understand something.
When we don't understand, or when we fear that we might not understand, indeed, okay? Because actually it's very common sometimes to have like miscommunication and misunderstandings, okay? So indeed, how do we do it then? How do we listen actively? First of all, as you said, when you're interested, so we need to show interest. And how do we show interest? With the elements that we talked about before, right? So sometimes the eye contact, sometimes, I mean, you should try and do this exercise once. to try not to express absolutely anything with your body is very frustrating, you know, because we tend to nod, we tend to blink to say that I'm listening to you and so on and so forth, you know. So these are the ways that you can show interest in active listening. To avoid interruptions, because actually, especially when the person is sharing something personal, sometimes we tend to fall into the trap of advising too quickly, okay? So let the person express, let the person finish the thoughts, okay? And instead of jumping in and saying, I would do like this, because sometimes the solutions of the other person are not your own solutions, okay? And then, of course, what do you think is this reflective technique that is there? So summarize or repeat back key points to confirm you received the message as intended. What do you think it can mean?
What does it mean, reflective technique? So summarize or repeat back. So
And why do we need to do it as
yeah.
active listeners?
Also in the chat. I mean, here in the
Yeah,
group, but also in the chat.
absolutely. And if it's
Yeah.
too challenging, we'll skip to the solution, but I would like to hear your points first.
We can then try. We're going to have a part where we're going to try these techniques.
Yes, of course, I can repeat. So this last element over here, reflective technique, no? It consists in summarizing the key points to confirm that you received the message as intended. So I said X, and then as an active listener, Ada is going to come to me and say, so from what I can hear from you, you are dealing with this situation. Did I understand correct? Okay. And considering this is the problem and the situation, you're considering to address this in X, Y, Z way. Which one do you want to pursue eventually? Which one do you want to concretize? Okay. This shows active listening from others' perspective, because especially when we are emotionally overwhelmed or we need to take a very, very important decision in our lives, it's very precious to have somebody in front of us that helps us navigate these moments, okay? So being a good active listener doesn't mean that the person on the other side just listens to us, but it also means that the person will bring elements and like questions or even points in an unbiased way. Unbiased means in the most objective way possible, so to support you in taking your own decisions, in understanding yourself, in understanding your emotions, and so on. This role, sometimes we will have parents playing these roles, friends playing these roles, partners, okay? And of course, in the workplace, we will have mentors playing these roles sometimes, okay? So active listening is beyond the capability of being able to listen, but it's also like, how do I use communication in a way that I can support the other person without forcing my opinion onto the other person, but just for the sake of really supporting the person on the other side, okay? What can cause misunderstandings in communication? So misunderstanding is when we do not understand each other, okay? What are the possible causes of misunderstandings?
When the person thinking
Yeah, they're thinking different things. Yeah, different things. Yeah. When they mean different things. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so different opinions maybe. So like, I think X, you think Y, and maybe we have to do something together. And what are we doing? Do we do X? Do we do Y? Do we do both of them? So maybe it's like, and if we do not communicate clearly with each other, sometimes it's like, let's do this, no, let's do this, but then you don't really understand what's wrong in that. And so you misunderstand each other, okay? So when it's this, what you said, different perspectives and all that can cause a conflict, okay? And it can start from a misunderstanding. What else can generate misunderstandings?
So different points of views, okay, different opinions. What else? I was showing active listening.
Yes,
And I was recapping
exactly. And practice.
in practice. So what can cause misunderstandings? You understand misunderstandings, right? What can cause misunderstandings? Yeah, no, we have different opinions and no, it's okay. Active listening, what else?
The person who you are talking is not hearing you.
Okay, it's not listening properly to you.
Yeah.
So the other person is not doing active listening.
Okay, fair enough, fair enough. So what does it mean also not to do active listening? It means that sometimes we filter. I mean, we all see reality with our own perceptual lens. What does it mean? It means that we all wear our glasses of perception, you know, and what causes perceptions over things? So like, why sometimes do we see things in a certain way, or do we filter things in a certain way? What influences us to see things in a certain way?
What do you think has an influence on the way you see things? What do you think? Could be different. What has an influence? Could be, I mean, the place where you are. Come pensi? Quello che influenza, come cosa pensate? Cos'è che influenza cosa pensate, secondo voi? It's tricky at your age. It's tricky. No, I don't understand. It's tricky at you're 16. It's tricky. Okay, your habits. Yeah. Your habits.
Your habits, okay, exactly. And what determine our habits actually? So do you think, for example, that German, since you are in Germany right now, so a German is going to see food, to perceive food in the same way that an Italian perceives food, for example?
Food, like food.
So for Italians, food is like sacred, no? So for example, the fact of sharing a meal with your people, with your family members, with your friends and all is a sacred habit, let's say, okay? So your perception over food is something. Maybe in a German family, it can still be like that, but maybe at a lower influence, okay? So what do we call, for example, Italians, Germans, Chinese, and so on? What is this? Is the effect of culture, okay? Culture, for example, on us. So culture determines the way we perceive reality. So whoever is Italian is going to perceive through the Italian lens and so on. Then we have our individual perception. And who shapes our individual perception of things? You're on mute. I can't hear you.
Kind of translating, yeah. I was helping with the translation. Yeah. Fine.
Okay.
Yeah. So what could it be? What is shaping the way we perceive the yeah. So yes, our culture, apart from that. Okay, yeah. I will. We have the link. We have the link. You can also join. You can also join here.
Okay, all good, no problem. So anyway, our culture, our families, our friends, your education, so your schools, okay, so there's a lot of elements around us that shape our perception over things, you know. So miscommunication is mostly caused when we have assumptions in our heads, okay? What does it mean, assumptions? That I assume that this is bad, okay? So let's say I'm thinking about this, I hate this, I really do not like this, okay? And I assume that you also hate this, okay? And so sometimes when I'm gifting this to you, I would be like in my head, it's like, what a wonderful gift. in your head that you don't like this. It's like, why is this person giving me this? It's such a horrible thing. Okay. So assumptions, the idea about it is that sometimes we filter everything because we are not in the Star Wars reality. So we cannot read the minds with the force of the people in front of us. Okay. So we have mind reading expectations. We think what is going on in the other person's head, and we do not. Okay. Most of the times we do not. Of course, the more we know the person, the more we might know what's going on in the other person's mind, but most of the times we do not, okay? Then, of course, we all have our past traumas, past wounds. Then there is, of course, the digital distortion. What does it mean, the digital distortion? It means that in the digital, the only thing left are the words. So most times we don't know the tone of voice that the person used to say that words. Yes, sometimes we use emoji, but what about emojis also? What happens with emojis in the digital world? Do you think that you and your parents or some other friends and all, you read emojis in the same way?
We can also ask, do you use emojis when writing? Do you use emojis? Yeah, quite often, right? Depending. So do you use emojis mostly when you talk to friends? Depends. Or do you talk to your parents? Do you use emojis?
Yes.
With parents, use emojis? And with friends, do you use emojis? It depends. Young people. Depends. I don't use emojis that often.
Okay, it depends. Anyway,
Among friends, you don't use so many emojis, right?
yeah, and I mean gifts also, it also applies to gifts, okay? And
Gifts?
stickers and whatever you use.
They use stickers.
Stickers.
You're
exactly.
young now.
Yeah. So, I mean, all of these, it was born not only to have fun, obviously also to have fun, because I find gifts and stickers super cool, but they were born initially to compensate all the part of nonverbal that we do not see, okay, or that we do not hear, let's say, in communication. So to communicate beyond words, to visualize things, okay, it was born for this initially. However, if you think about it, different generations and different people and different ages and we just read those emojis, those GIFs, those stickers in our all complete way, okay? So it's that is completely subjective, okay? And of course, as we said, sometimes if we do not clarify, if we do not ask for questions, if we get defensive, okay? And also when we are stressed, when we are very emotional, it's very, very difficult to rationalize. So, sometimes that when you're very angry and you just spit out some emotions to the person next to you, maybe to the person you're angry to, or even not, or even somebody else. And then all of a sudden, once you're calm again, you're like, why did I say that in the first place? Okay, because it's actually very difficult to rationalize and to be objective when you are overwhelmed, when you have emotional interference. Okay, so too many emotions to deal with, pretty much. Okay, so we have to be careful about all these things, okay, when communicating, and especially we'll go to the conflict in a second. What does it mean to be assertive?
Have you ever heard the term assertive? Assertivo, assertive. What's in Italian? Similar? Wow. Learning a lot today. That's great. That we are shaping the next generation today. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very important. Actually, we never learn communication. This is something, we should reflect about. We never learn how to communicate. And it is such a basic skill. We should really learn. Somehow.
That's true. So there are 3 communication styles, okay? So there is the passive style, the aggressive style, and the assertive style, okay? So let's try to understand what is it. And it's not that you have to play in the assertiveness all the time. Of course, there are some moments in which we can be a bit more passive if we decide that it's okay, I don't want to put my energy on that, okay? But so the passive one is the one that is trying to put conflicts under the carpet. I don't want to face the situation. Whatever comes, comes. I don't mind. Okay, so this is passive communication, okay? So when you are lacking energy, or I mean, whenever you feel it's needed, it's okay to be passive, but to a certain extent, because being passive means that you won't deal with your problems, okay? Always remember that deciding not to take a decision, it is taking a decision. So you're taking the decision not to take a decision, okay? So that's the passive modality. Then there is the aggressive modality, which is like attack modality, okay? When you interrupt the people all the time, when you criticize the people all the time, when you make the others feel small or wrong or whatever it is. Then there is assertive communication that is there in the middle, okay? So what does assertive mean then? It means that I am listening to the other person, so active listening. I am really respecting what is coming from the other side, but sometimes we have to put boundaries. You know what boundaries is? Boundaries is limits, okay? So what does it mean? If the person is asking from me something that is really not right or really bad or something that hurts me or that puts me in a very, very bad situation, I should put a limit to it, okay? So assertive communication means this. It means that through communication, you are going to express that I'm listening to you, I respect your point of view, but this is my limit right now, okay? And the idea is to keep into assertive communication as much as possible, be it in your personal lives or also beyond, of course, in your professional lives, okay? It's always a matter of understanding when, where your limits are, okay? Expressing yourself clearly, respectfully, try to dialogue to the other person to the extent possible, yeah?
Let's repeat one more. No, there are some doubts about assertiveness. Now imagine first time they hear that.
Absolutely. Let's go. Tell me.
Yeah. So what is assertiveness? No, well, you understood what is passiveness, right? How it is when you are fast. You understand that, right? Perfect. Aggressive, I can show you if you want. No, for free. No, you understand also aggressiveness, right? How it is when you communicate in an aggressive way. When you shout, when you make the other person feel wrong, whatever. You understand aggressiveness. We have some doubts about assertiveness. Okay, I think you can, Mel, you can say something in an assertive way to us.
Mhm. So there is an example over here. We can read it together, for example, and we will also do some other examples. So so imagine you're in a group work, okay, and then the people around are not actually listening to you, okay? So you want to express an idea, but the others are just not listening. So the passive situation and the passive communication would be that either you don't speak or that you say it, but without stating that, guys, listen to me, I really need to be listened. And if you want to remove the option, we remove it, but listen in the first place, okay? So passive, you're just avoiding to have actually this conversation. Aggressive is like, this is my idea, we need to follow it, that's it, okay? It's the bossy dictatorship way, okay, of communicating. Assertive is in the middle. So for example, the one I put over here is like, I feel overlooked. Overlooked means I feel
Ignored.
sad because I'm not ignored, exactly, because I'm not seen, okay? So I feel ignored when my ideas aren't acknowledged. So when you're not listening to my ideas in group discussions, I really would like to share my perspective. I really would like to share my ideas. Can you give me the space to do that? Okay. So you're not being aggressive, like, listen to me, this is it, you know, but it's also that you're not trying to disappear in that, okay? So it's like, you're not listening to me. Can you please give me a chance to speak? Consider my idea, and maybe we move wrong, even if we decide not to follow this idea. Is it any clearer?
It's clear. Perfect.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, no problem. Then it's very important to be assertive. I mean, also assertiveness also comes with age. So like understanding the balance between being passive, being aggressive. And so like where the assertiveness lies, it's gonna come with time, okay? So the important is that we are aware, so that we know this exists, okay, so that we try to understand with time where is the balance, okay, between being passive and being aggressive, and so being assertive instead, okay. So what are conflicts and what causes conflicts?
Misunderstanding.
Misunderstandings, yeah.
So sometimes misunderstandings cause conflict, yes. What else?
What else can cause conflict? Fabbing, of course, fabbing, yeah. So the fact that somebody, instead of looking at you, listening to you, is looking at their smartphone, yes. Fabbing, the topic of the question, I suppose.
Absolutely, very nice, prepared. Absolutely. So I will bring you an example that is like how one word can make all the difference, you know, and how one tiny misunderstanding over one word can just generate a huge conflict, okay? Some time ago, I was with my husband and we went to buy shoes, okay? A pair of shoes, he had to buy shoes. Then we went together and then there were sales. Wow, okay, so let's buy 2 pairs of shoes instead of 1, since you don't have any pair of shoes at the moment, okay? And then, okay, we went to the shop, all was fine. And all of a sudden, I was like, take 2 shoes because it's 70% off. And he's like, no, but I don't want to spend so much money and all. And I said, come on, don't be a miser. You know what is a miser? In Italian is un tacaño, okay? So like a person that doesn't want to spend money, okay? So it's like, come on, it's 70% off, just get 2 pairs of shoes instead, okay? Now, and all of a sudden, then my husband was like, why are you calling me that? Like very angry, very aggressive communication, you know? And I was like, okay, what did I say? What did I do now? Okay. So that's when communication really helps. Okay. So I got him out of the shop and it's like, now we're going to sit on the bench and we're going to talk about this. So basically this miscommunication and misunderstanding was about to generate a conflict and maybe to break our relationship. Okay. So we were like, okay, let's sit outside and let's talk. And it's like, okay, what do you hear when I say the word miser? Okay. Because for me, miser is a person that is not willing to buy 2 pairs of shoes on 70% sale. Okay. No, for me, miser is a person that is not ready to sacrifice for the family and that saves money. And, you know, so you see our own perceptual lens, how much influences. So a person coming maybe from another culture, another family situation with open wounds of certain types, okay? So, but you have to understand the root cause of the conflict and the root cause of the misunderstanding to be able to tackle it, to deal with it, okay? Because otherwise you don't get out of it, okay? So, for example, when it says over here, name your emotion. So it makes me feel in this scenario that I told you about. He told me, he gets me really angry and like unease. You using this word while addressing me, okay? The word miser, for example. So I know now that this word is painful for him, okay? Because of his baggage that he carries, okay? So probably it's better not to use it in the future unless I want to get out of that relationship, okay? So name your emotion. I am feeling sad. So this makes me feel sad. This makes me feel angry. This makes me feel confused, overwhelmed, frustrated, hurt. Okay. Then describe the behavior. So it's like when you call me miser, okay? So, or when you do this to me, whatever the example is that you can think of with your friendships, for example, or your family situations and so on. So, okay, so it makes me feel bad when you call me miser. So please don't use this word again and do not insist when I tell you that I don't want to do something, for example, okay? So that's your request. And of course, stay open in the sense that he had to hear, to be able to not be angry at me anymore. He also had to embrace and understand that miser for me meant buy 2 pairs of shoes. And I was not complaining about how much support he was with his own family, for example. Okay. So, but if we are not rational when dealing with conflicts, then it's very difficult, very, very difficult because you're going to blame the people. So, for example, an example here, you always ignore me, you never include me in conversations, maybe your tone of voice is high and so on. Also, why do you think there is the word always and the word never? What does never mean and what does always mean?
Never and always. When we say never, perfect, and always, is it really always and never? That's a big question. When we say you always do this, it's probably that you have done this 3 times in a row, and for us, it's already always. Same for never. We never go out.
Yeah, exactly. So words come with a weight, okay? So never is never, 100%, like 0%. Always is 100%, okay? So whenever we are going to use this kind of words, the person is going to be defensive on the other side, okay? Because you are not recognizing on the bigger scheme of things that there are also other situations, okay? So it's not always that, never that. So reframing, yeah, sorry.
For example, as a student, you may understand that you arrive late once to class, and the teacher calls you on and says, "You're always late." How do you feel? It's maybe the second time you have been late,
Yeah,
You may understand
exactly.
what.
Maybe it's
Yeah.
always, maybe
So-
it's actually, maybe it's 100% of the time, then your teacher is right, okay? But indeed, when it's like a once in a while situation, or even that it just happened in a period of time, that is going to generate a misunderstanding and probably a conflict at some point, okay? So conflicts are clashes of different opinions, different objectives, different values, okay, between people. So reframing and using this formula, I feel emotion when you behavior, please request, okay, can help you getting out of them, okay, and actually truly meaningfully communicating when you find yourself in this kind of situation, okay. So okay, this one you don't have to share it if you want, but I would like you to put in a paper in front of you to use the formula, what we said over here. So I feel emotion when you behavior, please. So you can write the example in the chat or you can write it on a piece of paper. It doesn't matter, okay? I just want you to take like 1 minute to make an example, maybe of a situation you have lived recently with a friend, with a family member, okay? Try to complete this sentence with a personal example. Really 1 minute. Okay, so do we have any example? Maybe just 1, 2 examples. If you want to put in the chat or say it out loud, okay. I feel frustrated when you, let me check on the chat. Frustrated when you interrupt me. Please let me finish. Absolutely. Perfect, perfect. Please let me finish and consider my views. Then if we decide to move on with something else, we decide it together. Absolutely. One more example.
If you want to share one example.
Yeah.
You can write it down, yes, on the phone or paper.
Yeah, just one more. Okay, one more.
I feel want to say anything. It's too personal to share.
No,
Okay, yeah. Want to share? Yeah.
I feel angry when you divide me.
I feel angry when you
Disable me.
ah
When you?
Eso se.
this say.
Serious.
Yeah, okay.
I feel like you're making a fool of me when you ask me to repeat the same things for the fourth time. Please listen to me the first time.
Fair enough. Fair
But
enough.
I feel angry. For example, I feel angry. We can combine when you
Yeah, fair enough. So
Yeah.
please be an active listener because it's really anger-inducing, frustrating, or even tiring, right? So when you have to repeat so many times something to a person, absolutely. Okay, we got it. We got it.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Very-
much.
false hope. So you feel angry
Yes.
when I'm given false hope. So and then a request. Very nice. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the last things that I want to share with you is how much we can actually manipulate, let's say, the communication process when we use open-ended questions or when we use close-ended questions, okay? This is a bit tricky. So let's try, I would say, to see directly in an example of it, okay? Because it's not exactly easy. So, for example, a question like this: do you like A? Let's say, do you like this? Do you like my phone? Okay. Do you feel sad? What did you do? So these are close-ended questions. So close-ended questions is when, through our questions, we are determining the answer of the person in front of us. Okay. So while open-ended question is when we keep it open for the person to explore, to give us their thoughts, okay, and to tell us what they think, what they like, and so on. So for example, help me putting this first one as an open-ended question. So do you like A? How do we put this close-ended question, how do we transform it into an open-ended question? Do you like A? Anyone?
We have a suggestion. We can try.
Try. Vai.
We can try. We can try. Angelina, try. Yeah, we can try. Yeah.
Why do you feel sad?
Okay. Why do you feel sad? So it's a good point. However, so why do you feel sad when you want to make the person explore and deep dive? Maybe I've already told you, I feel sad. Okay. And then it's like, why do you feel sad? Then you are an active listener. Okay. So that's perfect. in this case, imagine though I come to you, and yes, maybe there are some signs of my body language or maybe of my behavior that tell you that maybe I feel sad. But if I ask you, do you feel sad? It means I am assuming in my head that the sadness is the emotion that you're feeling right now. Okay, so it's a subjective lens. So let's have a look and let's try to understand here. Okay, it's not easy. Open-ended question that takes some time to understand and to understand how much we can manipulate conversations based on the kind of questions we bring. So, for example, do you like A? Okay. Even if I ask you, do you like A, B, or C? Let's say, okay. Even if I give you 3 options, I'm still giving you options. While if I ask you, what do you like? I'm asking you, maybe you like traveling the world, okay? Or maybe you like sleeping, whatever. But I'm not limiting your options to some options, okay? Do you feel sad can be transformed in how do you feel? Because then I'm not assuming in my head that sadness is what you're feeling. Maybe you're frustrated instead. Maybe you're angry, okay? And imagine there is a confusion, a situation, and I come to you like, what did you do? What did you do is going to cause a defensive behavior on the other side to the person that I'm going to ask this question to. So even though the structure of it's a bit more open-ended, the meaning of it is actually closed-ended, okay? It's a closed question. So when I want to try to assess a situation in a more unbiased way, so in a more objective way, I can ask what happened instead, okay? So this, I advise you to do some practice upon because it's very important. And because these kind of questions, like using close-ended or using open-ended, are going to determine dramatically what the result of your communication process, okay? So it's good that you do it in a way that you are aware on how to approach this kind of situation, okay? So the last thing we're going to see then today together here, it is then when we have a conflict, when we have this kind of situation, what do we do? How do we approach the situation? I would say, like the first thing, consider that when we are over emotional, so when our emotions are too big, you should wait, you should take a deep breath. And maybe in that case, it's not bad to not to be passive, but to step back a little bit. So, because sometimes when we are too emotional, we are not going to manage that situation in a good way. Okay. So, sometimes take a time out. Sometimes in conflict, you will have to agree to disagree, especially when a conflict is caused by a clash of values, maybe a clash of opinions. Maybe I have opinion black, you have opinion white. So they're very different opinions, okay? So sometimes if we want to coexist and live in peace with the people around us, we will have to agree to disagree and respect the views of the other people. Whatever you can come to a consensus or whatever you can come to a middle point, it's amazing. But otherwise, we also have to agree to disagree sometimes, okay? Of course, apologize when there is need for an apology. Okay, so that is going to make communication process so more easy. Okay, and also return to the conversation after some time. So whenever you have a conflict, afterwards you should be able to go back, do a check-in. So okay, how are we doing regarding this? Are we still in peace, or is there still something that is not resolved? Okay, what is the risk of putting the conflicts under the carpet?
It could be a risk. If you avoid the conflict and say, okay, I forgot about that, you never talk about the problem again, what could be a risk of that? What could happen to the relationship?
Divorce.
Okay, if we're talking about marriage, divorce, yeah. Okay.
Absolutely, that the conflict is going to explode. So maybe a divorce, or maybe a friendship is broken forever, or maybe like anything, or maybe you're going to have an outburst, like an explosion, emotional explosion, or maybe you're going to be so drained that you're going to fall sick. Okay. So it's never good. It's never good to put a lot of conflicts under the carpet, like we say, because otherwise at some point the carpet becomes a mountain and you beat your face to the mountain, you and the people around, okay? So definitely. Conflicts are a very important and precious thing because it means that we are able to express, okay? Because if you think in dictatorships, you cannot have different views, you cannot have different opinions. So conflicts are essential to be able to understand each other, okay? As long as we manage them properly. We are kind when talking with the others. We are not over emotional, okay? We use nonviolent communication and so on, okay? I think we have just 5 minutes left, or what is the time management situation, Ada?
We're already very close to the ending.
Okay, lovely. So just really one last thing, okay? So I will come here directly to so we have negative communication, okay? Then we have positive communication and we have nonviolent communication, okay? So here is some examples to make you understand how much communication actually matters in conflict and in this kind of situation, especially when there is a lot of emotion involved, okay? So for example, you always ignore my text. You're such a bad friend. Okay, the person is going to get overreactive on the other side. It's like, what are you talking about? It's not always, it's just that yesterday I had a bad day or something like that. Okay. So, for example, positive communication would be, hey, please answer to me when you're free. Okay. So just to let me know you're okay, or just to let me know if you are okay with the plan that we agreed upon, or these kind of things, okay? And nonviolent communication, of course, this you have to see which situation is going to call for which kind of communication, okay? But for example, it's like nonviolent is focusing also on the feelings, you know, that situation is making you feel, okay? So when I see that you have read my messages, but you do not reply, I feel hurt because I really know to understand, you know, if you're listening to me and so on. Can you please tell me like, okay, yeah, well received, let's talk later because I cannot talk right now, you know? So the idea is that there are other ways rather than negative communication to talk, to express in a way that that we get our message across and we actually sort out things instead of generating explosive conflicts that eventually cannot be managed, okay? And very last example, really, and we are wrapping up on this. For example, why can't you ever clean up your trash? You're so disgusting, okay, this kind of situation. Can you please take your dishes and wrappers to the bin before you leave the room? I would really appreciate that, okay? So, because that makes me feel annoyed, because I have to do it myself eventually, okay? Can you please just take a couple of minutes, 1 minute to get this done, okay? You see that it's assertive communication over here, okay? In a positive way, in a non-aggressive, non-violent way, but it's an assertive communication. So you're actually saying what you mean to say, but not in a negative way, in a positive way, okay? So do you have any questions? Because we saw a lot of condensed topics when it comes to communication. So I would like to know if there is any doubt regarding this, yes, or if you want to know something different, like something else regarding this.
I prefer positive and not non-violent.
The nonviolent communication. So you prefer positive communication.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Why is that? That's an interesting point. Why is that?
Because I don't like speaking I don't like
Mhm.
talk about my emotions.
Your emotions. I understand. I understand. Of course, talking about emotions is difficult for everybody. Okay. Of course, it depends who we are sharing our emotions with, in the sense that with our close friends, it might be a bit easier. With our family, maybe some family members, it might be a bit easier or more difficult. It depends, okay, on the friendships you have and so on. So I understand. However, expressing emotions, it's also a way to really communicate, connect with the people around. But I understand that expressing emotion means you're making yourself vulnerable. Okay, that's a matter of fact, because then the person will actually see like what you feel about a certain kind of situation, you know? So talking about emotions from one side is an opportunity to actually connect more and at a deeper level with the people around you. But of course, you're also making yourself vulnerable. So it's about making little steps in the start with the people we trust more, you know, and decide who are those people that you want to communicate emotions with, you know, and doing little steps that way. But it is tough to talk about emotions. Thank you for sharing that. Indeed, it's not exactly easy to do nonviolent communication and expressing emotions, definitely. Anything else? Any last takeaway or any doubt?
Thank you very much. We have learned a lot. I think
Okay,
it's
thank
very
you.
useful to get a foundation. Yeah, to get the first ideas about communication in such a young age. So hopefully, this will set the base for more and more learning about communication in the young lives.
Thank you for your time. And now really do some practice, because of course they are highly practical themes that deserve a lot of exercise on it. Okay, so I hope I was able to support a little bit. Okay,
Thank you very
thank you so
Thank
much.
you much.
Bye.
Thank you, Matt.
Bye.
Bye bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Pausa,
No.
No, lezione pratica.
Ora mettiamo in pratica. Mettiamo in pratica, ma breve, cioè veramente breve. Mi piacerebbe che sceglieste ognuno qualcosa che vi ha colpito. Sono tutti concetti nuovi, se non sbaglio, no? Perché effettivamente, se ci pensate, che è un po' assurdo,
Public speaking.
sì, noi vogliamo fare public speaking, ma non parliamo di comunicazione a livello base, cioè non parliamo della comunicazione di tutti i giorni, che è poi quello che ci serve per vivere, sì, nel lavoro, diceva bene Mel, però anche nella vita privata, no? Comunichiamo tutto il tempo con le nostre famiglie, con i nostri amici, e non impariamo mai davvero a farlo. Cioè, queste regole base che abbiamo visto oggi, per questo ci tenevo che...